Welcome to another episode of Take the Hill, a leadership podcast dedicated to conversations about leadership. For this episode, I'm excited to be back in the studio with my co-host, Dennis. Dennis, welcome back. Similar to our last episode, we are excited to have another great group of students. Our conversations are meant to illuminate their narratives based upon their lived experiences. We have not scripted or screened the conversations prior to today. So what you're hearing is an authentic conversation about leadership during this period of uncertainty. Joining us will be Zach and Lorraine from the Rowland School of Business at the Point Park University, as well as Natasha, Alex, and Malena from the Human Resources and Employer Relations Program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So amid much of the uncertainty we are all experiencing now, I'm reminded of a statement that Andrew Carnegie once made, which was, do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself. In moments of uncertainty, I tend to believe that the first response is typically defined by a lack of control. We are often faced with the unknown or a rapidly changing environment when many individuals will often fall back upon what they know, and they tend to disengage, slow momentum, or become paralyzed. Right now, more than ever before, we need to focus upon what is within our sphere of influence. Despite the perception that much of what's happening is outside of our reach or outside of our control, if you think about Andrew Carnegie's quote, it reminds us that, again, if we do what we do, right, and do a little bit more, the future and what is within our influence will take care of itself. So in speaking of that future, let's bring in our first guest. All right, well, welcome to the show, Zach. We have Zach, again, is a business management student from the Rowland School of Business at Point Park University. And as we were talking about earlier, right now companies are also closing businesses and affecting employees' hours, which is something that you talked about earlier whenever we were talking about this topic, Zach. In addition to kind of your work hours, how has this kind of period of uncertainty shaped your experience over the last month or so?
Yeah, so I mean, as we all know, we're kind of in a crazy time right now. Me personally, I work for a company in Pittsburgh called ShowClicks. We're a ticketing software company. So this kind of pandemic has had a major impact on our business because, we sell tickets for shows where, there are more than 10 people that are going to be in attendance. And with the regulations that have been put in place, all shows have kind of shut down. So, we've been having to lay off a bunch of people. In my department, luckily, nobody's gotten laid off or lost their job, which is, a really good thing. But everyone's hours have been affected. So I went from working almost full time to working maybe 2 days a week. So that isn't ideal, but definitely understand the circumstances. But I actually started driving for Instacart, which is like a grocery delivery service. And it's pretty interesting because in the town that I live in, Aurora, Ohio, it's pretty small. So something like this wouldn't be really necessary because everybody's, super, super close to everything. But with this pandemic, people are afraid to leave their houses. Business on this app is just booming because nobody wants to go to the grocery store. So that's been kind of how I've been passing the time and making up for some of the hours that I've lost at my other job.
And you bring up a really good point in that, as you said, a lot of hours are getting cut right now. And especially in terms of your age group, you really rely on these jobs, not just for disposable income, but for books and schools and just daily necessities, right? So did you feel a lot of pressure having to make the decision of getting another job, given the potential risks that may be part of that decision?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So once we kind of had the whole, we had like a Zoom meeting at ShowClicks with everybody in the company, and the higher ups all kind of let us know that we were either going to be losing our jobs or that we're going to be experiencing some pretty significant hour cuts. So yeah, I definitely felt that pressure. I was applying to, overnight shifts at Home Depot. I was applying to Aldi, Target, really anything that I could fine. That was still considered an essential business where, they were hiring. And then this Instacart thing just kind of fell into my lap, but it was definitely a blessing for sure.
Were you nervous taking that job at all?
I mean, it was a little bit nerve-wracking just in terms of like catching a virus, which is spreading really rapidly and is a big deal. But I've been taking the precautions, wearing a mask, washing my hands like crazy, to the point where they're like raw now. But no, I mean, it was a little bit, I was a little uncomfortable with it at first, but once I started kind of getting in the groove of things, I figured if I'm taking all the necessary precautions and practicing safe social distancing, all that good stuff, then I'd be just fine.
Take us back to the moment that, whether you were in class, walking on campus, and, you first got that email that said, your semester is going to be kind of coming to a conclusion, at least in person.
Yeah, kind of just like what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah, thinking, thoughts, feelings.
So it was kind of a shock, honestly, as I think it was for a lot of people, just because we've never really experienced anything quite like this. I'll be the first one to say that I was not taking this coronavirus thing seriously really until, firstly, the NBA shut down. And then I think it was like the next day or the day after that is when Point Park decided to suspend everything. But the only word that I can think of is bizarre. It was just so bizarre. It was just one of those things where there was so much uncertainty that I didn't know if I was come back home, be with my parents, or if I was just going to kind of ride this thing out in Pittsburgh, because nobody knew how long, this shutdown was going to be for. But yeah, once Point Park made that call to suspend things for the rest of the semester, it all kind of, I guess, set in for me as well as a lot of other people. But I think I will say, done a really, really good job with this online instruction. I know professors have been working, super, super hard to make things as easy as possible on the students.
Yeah, and it's something that everybody kind of got thrusted into, not just faculty, but staff, administration, and all the support personnel, just across not only higher ed, but again, all businesses across the country right now are kind of having to look at things a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. From your experience, that shift, right? So now you ended up going home, obviously. Mm-hmm. How did that transition go for you? Because now it's, you're a junior in college, mm-hmm. right? So now you're kind of back home and your family's all together, most likely, and you're kind of resetting the rules a little bit in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I obviously love my family very much. I'm happy to be home with them, but I definitely miss Pittsburgh. I miss being in a house with all of my friends all the time. And like you said, the rules are a little bit different here, but that's okay. But no, I mean, it hasn't been too much of an adjustment. I thought I was going to be a lot more miserable than I really am, but keeping myself busy. Everybody's kind of staying busy. My dad is still working every day. My mom and my sister are both teachers, so they've been pretty much away doing Zoom meetings with their students and all that kind of stuff. So we're staying out of each other's hair as much as we can, but it's good to be around the family, good to be with the dog again, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's been pretty smooth.
Good. Hey, Zach, this is Dennis. I just wanted to ask a quick question. How your experience as far as your colleagues, are they experiencing kind of the same feeling? And I guess my question would be, have you been able to encourage them in any way, since you've been able to find alternatives or being able to adjust? Have you been able to encourage others?
Yeah, for sure. I think, bringing Instacart back up, I've been telling all my friends about this, delivery service, Instacart, how, lucrative it is. I've been making really good money doing it, and it's a great way to pass the time, kind of keep your mind off of all the craziness going on in the outside world. And then away from that, I've just been like, hey guys, we need to stay inside because, summer's coming up. We all want to have a good summer and, be together again. So I think the sooner that I think what I've been trying to stress is the sooner that we can all kind of accept what's going on and follow the rules, the guidelines, the sooner we can all be back together having fun. But I guess that's really the encouragement, trying to get through all this online courses and homework and finals coming up here. It's been tough, but I think everybody's kind of doing well in their own way, which is encouraging in its own right, I guess.
So how have you adjusted to like the socializing? Like you and friends, have you come up with other methods or ways to socialize so that you can fill that void?
Oh yeah, for sure. So actually me and my friend group, there's about 10 of us. Every Friday we have either a group FaceTime or a Zoom meeting. But nothing beats being all together in the same house or the same city. But we're doing the best we can given the circumstances. But we're trying. It is definitely different. But different isn't always a bad thing, I suppose. But we're hanging in there. We're trying our best.
So this might be a little bit of a difficult question at this point in time, but now that you've kind of settled in a little bit over the last month and a half or so, are there things that are starting to kind of come into focus that you'll look back and reflect upon and maybe do a little bit differently, once we kind of get past this period of uncertainty?
Yeah, that is a good question. You're right about that. That's a really good question.
That's our job sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, things doing differently. I guess I took for granted for sure, like coming to class, seeing people that I don't typically interact with. It just kind of seemed normal to me. And now that, we're kind of out of that groove, it's like, where are all these people? And like, obviously hoping that they're well and safe, healthy, all that stuff. But definitely I'm going to not take for granted being in a classroom and having face-to-face interaction with people. But other than that, I think Dr. Fauci the other day said people aren't going to be shaking hands anymore after this. I think that might be a little bit extreme. If I see someone, I'm definitely going to extend my hand. But if they don't want to shake my hand, that's totally okay. But
so
yeah,
your prediction on what's going to replace the handshake, is there going to be a new cool fist bump, elbow bump? What's going to go on here?
Yeah, you got it. I think it's going to be the elbow bump. That's what I've been going with lately when I see people.
Excellent. I like it.
Do you find that as a student, do you find that maybe some students may find that after experiencing this online and Zoom classes and so forth, that they may change their idea of what education is in the future, or their desire to do more online versus face-to-face?
Oh, absolutely. So actually yesterday, Angelo was helping me with my schedule. And before this whole thing went down, I preferred, being in the class, and I still do, being in the class, being face-to-face. But after this, I think, myself and others are kind of more open to taking a couple more online classes. So I know this summer I'm taking 2 classes online, and then in the fall I've got another class that's going to be online. But yeah, for sure, the whole perspective of what an education is and should be and could be, this is definitely going to have a huge impact on that. Like I said, people are going to be more open to, learning remotely, learning online. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think, an education is what you make it. And if you put in the work, you're going to learn something and advance yourself. But, we'll see. This is a weird time. Like I've said so many times, it's a bizarre time. But a lot of things are going to change, not just education.
Do you have any thoughts or messaging that you want to send out to friends, colleagues, and family before we kind of let you move on here?
Yeah, keep, social distancing. I think I said before, the sooner that we accept the circumstances and really kind of hunker down on what's being asked of us, like social distancing, not going anywhere unnecessary, all that stuff, the sooner we're all going to be able to be back together in large group gatherings. Things are going to go back to, the normal, having sports to watch on TV, going to games, going out, being with your friends again. So the sooner we can do that, the sooner we'll be back doing what we love, and just keep on keeping on, as they say.
Excellent. Well, we definitely want to extend our thanks for you making the time this morning, and we definitely want to make sure that you, your family, friends are all staying safe and healthy, and we wish that to continue here moving forward. So thank you again for joining us, Zach. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Stay healthy, stay well, guys, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.
All right, we would like to welcome our next guest, Lorraine, who is an organizational leadership student here within the Rowland School of Business. Again, Lorraine, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Awesome. So right now, in our conversations earlier, we're certainly going through a period of time that's marked by a lot of uncertainty for many individuals. And I thought you brought up a really good point that, in addition to making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, it's also really important that we need to remember to support and care for those who need help. Can you expand on those thoughts a little bit?
I can. I was listening to a podcast by author and speaker Rick Warren right when this whole pandemic started, and he addressed the fact that how during this time there's going to be people who all they can do is survive. Like, they've lost jobs, they don't have an income anymore, they're on the edges of financial hardship. And then there's going to be the flip side, where there's those of us who are financially stable, still are working, or have a community of people who we can lean on for support in times like this. And while we all are grieving loss during this process, the people on the one end of the spectrum who are in a healthy financial position and have people around them to support and connect with, it's our calling to thrive in these situations, to care for those who are just trying to survive right now and take care of them. And we do have to get creative in how we can do that, as we can't physically be with each other. I've also grown a dislike for the word social distancing, because that just means that we don't actually have to communicate with anyone, whereas we're more so physical distancing. We can still be social, so we still have phone, video chat, FaceTime, email, and even getting back to the whole writing a handwritten note and mailing it.
Yeah, which again, like you said, I see that happening more and more, and you'd be surprised at the reaction people get when you get a handwritten letter in the mail from somebody.
I know. I've started pen pals with someone just because you have the time to write it, and there's incredible power in writing a handwritten note.
That's awesome. So take us back a little bit, about a month and a half or so, whether you're in school, at work, when it kind of became real for you, where businesses or schools and universities were shutting down.
So I'm an international student, so I'm actually from Canada, so I don't work, so I'm just in school full time. But It became really real when I had plans to go home to visit friends I hadn't seen in a while, to visit family, and kind of just celebrate some life milestones with some people, and I wasn't able to anymore. So I kind of had to grieve that a little bit, and the fact that I decided to stay in the U.S. as an international student, so I don't know when I'm going to see family and friends from back home again. So the transition to online school was fairly smooth. The reality is just we can't actually physically see people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that a tough decision to make? I mean, did you think about, maybe I should get back home, or were you comfortable staying here?
It was not an easy decision to make. I mean, I kind of weighed the pros and cons. I was like, well, if I go back home, and this was really early on, so things hadn't transpired to how drastic they are now, where you're only allowed to leave your home for essentially groceries in the bank. So I was like, well, if I go back home, I could probably find work to make some money. And then I asked some family and friends about it, and the reality kind of came down to, if I went home, I would be self-isolated for 14 days. And I wouldn't even be able to see my friends and family, because Canada had already put in a stay-at-home order at that time. So after
go ahead. Yeah, how did your family react to your decision?
Oh, they were completely fine with it. I mean, they wouldn't want me coming home and infecting them. So,
sure.
and they can't see each other anyway, so we just stay connected, like through messaging, video, email, all that good stuff.
Awesome. So what things can people do, as you said, handwriting letters, staying connected via social media or video chat? What else can people do to help care and support others who might need assistance during this time, from your perspective?
From my perspective, there's actually there's so many things and creative ways that you can stay connected. I know there's a lot of food pantries out there whose volunteer base is a lot of seniors, and they've decided to not drive or deliver food or help distribute because they're one of the higher demographics that if they get this virus, it's not great. So younger people who are willing to like go on the front lines in those areas and volunteer their time is huge. Other ways that, like, I live in a community that we connect with a lot of kids, and I can't see them anymore. So what I'll do is I like go for walks and try to run into them at a safe distance. Or one kid popped his head out of his bedroom window, and we had like a short little conversation in that kind of way. And I think not waiting for other people to connect with you, but just making the effort to reach out to them. Just kind of remove your own selfish desires from the picture and just be that first person to make the connection, especially with seniors or people who live alone. This is a very difficult time for them, especially if they're more extroverted. So
sure.
Yeah.
So as we've been in kind of this environment of kind of uncertainty for about a month and a half or so now. What kind of thoughts or ideas are kind of being bounced around your mind in terms of how things are going to change as you look forward?
Change like on just any sort of level, like school level?
Yeah, sure. School, life, work, and it could be really anything. Because it's obviously going to take.
Yeah, it's going to definitely affect a lot of things. I have thoughts on probably 3 different levels. I'll start with the school level. I think if you look at post-secondary education as a whole, a lot of students are going to realize that they can do their entire schooling from home, and potentially maybe choose that route versus actually living on campus or going to school. That's just one idea I've bounced around. And then on a work level, I think that businesses are going to start seeing that how much work and productivity will still happen when workers are not in an office. So they might be like, hey, we can save money because we can reduce our office spaces having people work from home. And then on a personal level, I think just knowing people who have been affected by this virus and how it impacts those who are not healthy, just kind of maybe giving people a different perspective on life to take their health more seriously. And because when you're not healthy, your immune system is not as strong, and et cetera, et cetera. So something like this greatly haven't taken care of themselves. So hopefully it will inspire others to be more healthy.
Yeah, in that same note, this is Dennis. Right? In that same note, kind of looking toward the future, as you stated, one of the things that you were talking about is how people need help. But do you think this is going to change how society, the relationship with society, our society, that people become more willing to step up and help others? Or do you think that once this crisis is over, we'll go back to norm? How do you think things will change as far as relationships in society?
Ooh, that's a great question. Kind of hard to say how things will change, because I don't think what we knew life before this it's not going to look the same or be the same, because we're always going to be living with this, like, we survived the coronavirus season. But I was helping at a food pantry last night, and I heard one mom say, she's like, there's something really cool about this time. She's like, I'm actually getting to get reacquainted with my children. She's like, I'm getting to know them on a deeper level than just the running and passing from this sporting event to school to quickly eating dinner out the door with this other kid. She's like, we're actually becoming a family. And hearing that just made me really think. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. Like maybe through the season of so much crisis, there are so many good things that are still happening, that we can't lose sight of that as well. I don't know if I answered your question, but that was the thought that came to mind. So maybe for future wise, my hope that it allows people time to like work on relationships and really just grow them to a deeper level than the surface level conversations that a lot of our culture just lives on today.
No, I think you answered the question very well. I think I guess then I would ask a follow-up question on that. So do you think that maybe the me society may become less prevalent in today's society, that less people are thinking less of themselves now and thinking more of others?
I would definitely hope and pray it does. I mean, it would create a more beautiful world if we could all live more cohesively in community and not so selfishly looking after ourselves. I know the community I live in, the food pantry we've had some people in our community who do have financial hardships, but will come and say, I only want to take what I need. Because they're like, I don't want to take away from those who need it more. And these are people who are already struggling more than I am in life. So I would hope that it would open the door for people to become less selfish. And I also think it hits home for a lot of people, because I can just give an example at this food pantry that I help with weekly. We have registered probably 50 to 60 new families within 3 weeks. And for those people to actually physically come out and say, I need help, is just makes them realize that they can't do it on their own anymore. And that's okay. And I think just telling people that you don't need to be able to do life on your own, and that's okay.
And I think that's a really interesting phenomena that's happening, that, again, as you talked about, maybe we'll see some transition in our society that moves away from that, it's me all the time, to more of that collective humanity, right? The fact that, again, people are stepping out and saying, you know what, I can't do this all by myself. So whether it's pride, whether it's ego, or whatever it is, maybe this is enough to send enough of a shock through the system that will reconnect people. And that's amazing. I mean, it's that people like that are out there. Like you said, people who do need help are still cognizant of others, and they're not taking everything off of a shelf, or not taking everything because they want to leave stuff for others, because they have empathy and they know that we're in that collectively. So it's a great message, and one that I do hope, becomes more prevalent, after this all kind of is able to pass. So
I agree.
Any final thoughts that you want to share with your friends or colleagues, either here or, of course, your family back home, before we kind of move on here?
The only thought that comes to mind right now is what I've learned through this crisis is that it can be taken so negatively. My faith plays a big important part of my life. So one thing I've done is like looking for something good throughout the day that's happened, or creating that one moment of good for yourself, whether that's reaching out to someone else to make their day, writing a card, just doing something intentional, or thinking about something intentionally that's good that you've seen happen, or just like that, so that it doesn't become a depressing season, which I think a lot of people will end up struggling with. But if they can, the one thing that we can't change the situation, but one thing that we can change is how we think about it in our thought process. So if we become able to do that, I think that it's a healthier survival mode for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I could say it, I'm sure Dennis and Angela agree as well, that it's very well stated, and it's a perfect, I think, note for us to kind of end on. Is, again, it doesn't need to be some grand gesture. It could be something small, whether it's a quick handwritten note, a phone call, or whatever it is, just to say hi.
Exactly.
So, Lorraine, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Like you said, I know it's tough sometimes to carve out big periods of time, but we appreciate you joining us and having a conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. I would like to welcome our next guest, Tasha, who's in the HR+ER program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So good morning and welcome to the show, Tasha.
Hi, it's great to be on here.
Well, we are excited to have you here as well. So as we are now kind of in this period of uncertainty, could you reflect for a moment, kind of looking back as to when, things may have changed for you, whether that was, your school or life or work, whatever that may have meant to you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of made a transition period that I've already been going through just even more uncertain, but it's kind of helped clarify things and also made me realize that I have lots of time and how do I want to spend that time.
I think I would agree that variable of time is something that a lot of us really don't pay attention to until something disturbs it, right? Whether, it's increased due to some crisis or shortened due to something happens with our health or our family. Was there a particular moment, like were you in class or you were at work that it became real, such as a news announcement from maybe a governor or the federal government that said we have to stay home now?
Yeah, it was probably as we were all winding down for spring break and then realizing that we weren't coming back to campus, that, as a senior, the things that we were all expecting to do, like graduation, saying goodbye, just wasn't really going to happen. And so that was something to kind of come to terms with.
Was that a difficult transition for you? Because I know you had said that, you were already kind of thinking about some of the things already, but this may have kind of amplified or sped up some of those thoughts or reflections.
I was, yeah. So I'm a graduating senior and also looking at other programs and careers. And this just kind of put into perspective, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And it's kind of helped bring things into some lights that I didn't really see before.
Mm-hmm. How has it changed you? Because one of the quotes I think we talked about earlier is you said that it kind of compelled you to question what you seek in life and how you use the time you have. In what ways has it maybe changed you that you're willing to share?
I've actually decided to change careers, which kind of in itself is always
That's a big
kind
one.
yeah, so some kind of like stressful, exciting. It's just kind of like walking into an unknown. I decided to switch from what I studied in undergrad, which is speech language pathology, to I would like to pursue a PhD in psychology. So a little bit different, but
awesome. That's a big jump, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Nice.
But I think
Nice.
either way, I could help a lot of people, which is how I kind of want to fulfill my life.
Yeah. How are you staying connected with kind of family and friends right now? Obviously there's the social distancing thing happening and it was just kind of keeping us a little bit apart, whereas normally we'd be able to just kind of meet up at a coffee shop or wherever, so to speak.
Yeah. We have family game nights over FaceTime now, which is
that's cool.
Playing Monopoly over FaceTime is something I've never done before.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure if we've all done that, but it's one way to stay connected.
Yeah, but now's the time to try these new creative approaches, right? So
exactly.
Excellent. So how do you think, this experience is going to kind of translate into you in your doctoral program in terms of your idea of wanting to really be able to help people more?
Just seeing how we react in times of crisis on like an individual level and on like a community level. Just how are we, we joke about people hoarding toilet paper, but why are people hoarding toilet paper? What causes us to mass buy in a panic, and do we really need to do that? And how can I use what I observed to ultimately help people down the line.
So what have you seen so far that has probably been one of the, I don't want to use our craziest response in terms of hoarding? Like, for example, you know, I went to buy dishwasher liquid, for example, and I noticed that was kind of just all gone, right? So have you had any of those experiences yet beyond toilet paper?
I've noticed the canned aisle is empty, like we're preparing for the apocalypse.
Nice, they do.
So you mentioned about how you use your time now. Can you give us some examples of how you changed your life and how you utilize your time? And also, could you give maybe some recommendations to others of how they can maybe adapt and use their time wisely during such a time or such a crisis?
Yeah, I think it can be kind of difficult when you're used to structure, like the students were used to, having class at a certain time and, having certain times of the day and make a schedule out of that. And now that we're staying inside and not going to class or to work, that you kind of have to fill your time and make your own structure, which can be a little bit difficult, but you can kind of use other people that you're living with to help, like, we'll all go on like walks with my dog, and that's how we all stay sane and still move a little bit and get some fresh air and help kind of break up big chunks of time, so you're not spending 17 hours a day in the house or something.
So as you begin to kind of process everything that's happened to you, what other changes or what other significant impacts do you think this period of time will have on larger society once we're able to kind of move beyond where we're at right now?
I hope it shows us that we can all come together as communities and help out. We've seen, really heroic cases of people, donating masks or time or, coming together with Meals on Wheels and helping out people that, otherwise would be left behind. And I hope we can kind of translate a little bit of that into life after Corona.
Yeah. What do you think kind of prohibits or has kept individuals from changing during periods of kind of non-crisis? When before this, kind of a lot more self-centered, or there's more of this, it's all about me and myself and my little kind of sphere of influence. What is it that's prohibiting us from kind of transitioning to a little bit more connectedness within human nature, as opposed to maybe what we experienced before a crisis such as this?
I think, at least in our culture and our society, we are a bit more individualistic than other cultures, and that kind of plays out into the economic system and how we choose to spend our time and live our lives. It's very much a, how can I benefit the most from this? How can I make, the most money? How can I get the biggest raise? How can I influence most people? But this kind of catastrophe shows us that as much as we'd like to think that we stand on our own two legs, that we also are very much dependent on other people. Like if we take a look at essential workers, we still depend on them to stock our fridge and to, deliver, our pizzas and whatever. We can learn to rely on the people in a way that doesn't mean we're vulnerable to being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, Tasha, do you believe that, this is kind of your experience and kind of your perspective. Now, have you, talking to others, do you find that others are embracing the same perspective, that it's becoming less of a me society and becoming more of an intertwined and just becoming a whole different society? And do they, what's your experience with others and their perspective as well?
I think it kind of depends. There are some people that refuse to, keep up with guidelines like social distancing. There are some that will still go out, and there are some that are still very concerned with like their individualistic freedoms and their own wants and their own needs. So I think it kind of just depends on the person.
Awesome. Any other final thoughts? Anything that you want to share with your friends or colleagues or family before we start to wrap things up here?
I think we can always take times of uncertainty to reflect upon what we hold dear to ourselves, and just take a time of uncertainty to look and see what you'd like to change, not only about yourself, but also your own community.
Yeah, I think what you said is it's incredibly important. Like you said, it's every once in a while, whether it's we kind of do it ourselves or we're forced to kind of reevaluate or take a look at where we are at and the things we're doing and how we're spending our time. It can be incredibly important to do periodically throughout life. So Natasha, we want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and we appreciate the insight that you provided this morning for us.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
So our next guest is Alex from the HR+ER program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So welcome to the show, Alex.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Well, we are very excited to be here with you this morning as well. So right now we're kind of going through this period of uncertainty, where a lot of people's lives were disrupted. Can you think back, maybe about a month and a half or so ago, or kind of that moment when it kind of became real for you?
Well, I guess it all became real once we got the email stating, from the president that we are going to have another week off of school. But I guess it really didn't set in until we got the official email stating that, we're no longer going to be doing classes. I was still working for the school at the time, so I was still working when the students weren't allowed on campus. So it didn't really set in officially for me until I was told I can no longer work, which is probably about 3 weeks ago now. So it's definitely been a pretty big transition, and it took a couple weeks for it all to settle in and actually hit us.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, there's so many of us have experienced those moments, right? Whether we were in the classroom, at work, in the car, because there was that period of time where you could kind of still work and you're kind of still together, and it wasn't really as locked down, so to speak, as it is now. What things did you kind of grab onto, for kind of permanency, or you said maybe like a routine that you go through every day? How did you kind of make that transition?
Well, it definitely wasn't easy. I'd say for the first 2 weeks, I really didn't have a routine because, it was just such a big change. If you go from, constantly doing something, constantly working, constantly going to school and not really having a lot of free time to yourself. And when all that stops, it's just kind of like a culture shock, like, holy crap, like, what do I do now? So I probably was a little lazy for the first week or two, not gonna lie. But then I had a realization, hey, this is real. I don't know how long this is gonna happen. So then it's kind of just self-motivating yourself to be like, all right, let's get going. You can't go to the gym anymore. All right, let's do a home workout. All right, you can't go to the library. Let's set aside time and set up a spot at your house to do homework. So it was definitely just a lot of self-motivation to be all right, let's get things rolling, getting stuff back to normal. In regard to friends, there's a lot of great technology out there like FaceTime, Zoom now, where you can still communicate with your friends. So that's definitely been a pretty big lifter in my life, to be able to still see them and kind of hang out with them virtually. So that's been pretty nice. So just trying to keep up with the normal things, as normal as it can get for now, or creating a new normal, has definitely been something that has been keeping my life going, and trying to keep myself busy that way.
I know that you said about being structured, and I know from being your advisor and also your professor that you're very excited, and I know this is a short walk, but you were very excited about your internship. And
Yes.
Being a person that was structured, I know that you used it, that got canceled because you're not allowed to do the face-to-face. So how did you react to that? How do you adjust to that?
Well, honestly, I'm very devastated. I'm confused. I feel like I'm more confused now what I'm doing with my life. Before I had this, how do can I explain it better? So, like trying to figure out, okay, like what internship am I going to have? What jobs am I going to have? When am I going to be done with school? Like all that uncertainty is like a lot for a student. But, like I had that all figured out. But I'd have to say now all this uncertainty with this getting canceled has caused more stress for me than like, trying to find a job, because now I'm not sure if I can graduate on time anymore. And, I have to possibly sign another lease. I have to refinance my loans. I have to try to like scramble to find classes. I'm not sure if I'll still have my internship. So now I have to like try to figure out what am I doing with the rest of my life. So it's been very, very, very stressful. And, there's a lot of uncertainty from many ends with the school, with, like the company that I was going to work for. So it's just kind of like a waiting game. So it's definitely a lot to handle right now.
So how are you coping with that? What are you doing to cope with all the stress and cope with the uncertainties?
Well, right now I'm just trying to take it step by step. I had reached out to one of my professors, and we had like an hour-long conversation, and he kind of advised me, to do like one thing at a time, which was really helpful because I was trying to get everything done all at once. But now I'm just trying to take baby steps. So I just, like emailed a couple professors if they're still going to have classes, like emailing, asking about loans, emailed the company and asking them like what their plans are, and just kind of going step by step, and like just trying to wait it out. Like you can't worry about the future. No one knows what's really going to happen. Stuff could change a week from now, or it could be 6 months from now. So it's really just just trying to not like worry too far in advance, because everyone's in the same boat, and realizing everyone's in the same boat and everyone's going through this, definitely like like having that thought in my head has definitely helped, because everyone is experiencing this right now in some dimension of their life.
It is stressful, and not everybody's experiencing the same level of stress and so forth. So on a different note, how has this impacted how do you deal with because I know you're a very social person, how do you deal with the social part of this disconnect from individuals?
Well, it's not fun. I've really just been trying to pick up old hobbies that I've had before, trying to keep myself distracted. It's definitely hard not being able to go see your friends. I have so many friends that lived, houses down from me here at school, and a lot of them, have moved back home, or, or practicing like the social distancing to an extreme. So it's definitely been hard, not seeing your friends every day, or really just like being in like self-isolation. I live with myself and I have a dog, so it's just me and my dog 90% of the time. So it's definitely just I don't know, it's not fun to say the least. But I've been trying to like FaceTime my friends, and on Zoom the other day in Dr. Perkachish's class, my one friend was in the class with me, and we ended up being the last 2 people on Zoom, and he left us to be, and we talked for like another 20 minutes just trying to catch up. It's like when you get to like interact with them that way, it definitely is a brightener in your day, I guess.
Yeah, and it's definitely really important insight, and I think that kind of reminds us that never to take for granted that human connection, because our lives typically tend to be pretty rushed and accelerated all the time, right? And
yeah,
we skip those little moments that until they're taken away, we don't cherish them.
Yeah, and I've definitely realized that a lot. There's been times where my friends have asked me to hang out, and I'm just like, I'm too tired. I don't really feel like it. But I regret it. And in the future, when all this is over, I'm definitely going to try to take every opportunity that I can, to be with my friends and not take it for granted. Because a lot of my friends were seniors, or it's their last year of grad school, so I, in a way, lost a couple more months that I had with them, and it's definitely upsetting.
Yeah. So in addition to kind of treasuring that time, what else about this, period of uncertainty has either made you reflect or consider changing or get back to something that, you did before? Kind of once we emerge, what are you going to do differently?
Well, I think I will try to make more time to do the things that I like to do. I'm definitely a person that's usually always doing schoolwork or, at home. And I guess I haven't had the I guess I haven't really made the time to go out and do the things that I really want to do, like explore like Pittsburgh or go on like weekend trips. So I definitely think I'm going to pick up on that more. Regarding family, I live 5 hours away right now, so it's really hard to go see them. So I think in the future I might, like make more time to like make a trip up there, trip up home more often and spend more time with my family because, now I'm not allowed to see them. It just makes it even more upsetting that, I didn't see them sooner than I, like before all this happened. So definitely like spending time on things, like just everyday things that you want to go do, like a bucket list, and we might make a bucket list and try to, check everything off in a way.
Yeah. So any shout outs, messages that you want to send to family and friends or anybody else before we kind of wrap up?
Well, I definitely just say, everyone stay healthy, stay safe. We don't, all the uncertainty is definitely upsetting, but this will all come to an end eventually. And, hopefully everyone will walk out with, like a positive attitude and a new outlook on life. And all my friends and family, like miss them and, I'll see them as soon as I possibly can. But in all, just, keep moving along and doing things that make you happy every day, even if it's just something small, do something for yourself, to keep your mood lifted. It's definitely important to do that so you don't get like in a slump. But yeah, and that's pretty much all I can think of for right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you expressed it very well. Like you said, it's doing the things that are important to you and making sure that you're making the time to do so, whether it's yourself or your friends or family, whatever it might be. So we want to definitely thank you for taking the time with us this morning, Alex. We appreciate you sharing the insight and your experiences over the last few months with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great being here, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a good rest of your podcast.
All right, we would like to welcome our next guest, Malena, who is a student in the HR+ER program at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So welcome to the show, Malena.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you here this morning. So in reflecting kind of back, a month and a half or so, when did kind of this period of uncertainty kind of become real for you? So are you at school, at work, at a grocery store?
So I am a part-time student and I work full-time. So I think whenever it became real for me, especially was I'm 27 years old, so I'm involved in a lot of weddings that are coming. A lot of my friends are getting married, and I think when it was really real for me was when I got a call from my best friend's wedding shower venue, and this was way before like a lot of things were getting serious around here, at least it felt like to me, and they actually canceled her shower almost 2 months ahead of time. It was supposed to actually be this weekend, and that's whenever for us we were like, it's really starting to get serious. They're canceling things at restaurants and stuff like that, and it was kind of a ripple effect after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, I know, some of our colleagues, their sons or daughters are also getting married, and it's surprising to now you have all those plans and all that money and time invested. It's kind of certainly something that each and everybody has to deal with, right? It's just a domino effect.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. So how did you make that transition, right? And obviously, you said you're working full time. So what types of things happen at work, between work and life and balance? Like how did you kind of navigate this new environment?
So I work for a labor union in Pittsburgh, and at first we just were kind of doing everything we could to be there for our members, answering any questions that they had and stuff like that. And then slowly but surely our job sites started getting shut down, and a lot of the members were calling, looking for resources, different information about unemployment. And that's kind of a bulk of what we've been handling, helping our members obtain unemployment and stuff like that. But eventually we transitioned into basically working from home. We each go in a couple hours a day and handle anything that we need to handle. But besides that, there's not, anyone in the office when somebody else is there. And it's kind of been a very weird transition. We're kind of taking it day by day.
Mm-hmm. What are, when working for a union and the individuals that you represent, what were some of the things that you found as opportunities that, again, you guys were prepared for and worked really well? And what were some things that, maybe this is going to change a little bit so we can be better in the coming months or years moving forward that we've learned?
Definitely. So one thing I would say is we are used to dealing with unemployment due to the nature of the work. I work for the Boilermakers Union, and their work is kind of seasonal, more in the spring and the fall. So in the summer and winter months, a lot of the time, they are collecting unemployment. So we were used to being able to navigate with the unemployment offices and have a lot of contacts there and stuff. So that was very helpful for our members, us already being prepared to handle that information. And I think it helped the unemployment office, like in respect to our members, just help things go a little bit more smoothly. But besides that, I think just like being there for the members, answering questions. Honestly, I've spent a lot of time just talking to members on the phone whenever I am in the office, just about life. I think people are just bored and appreciate having somebody to talk to. It's been really interesting in that aspect.
Again, as you're talking to some of your union members, and I mean, we are all unsure of what the future holds for us. How are you encouraging them to have hope, or how are you encouraging them to not during this crisis?
So our business manager has been doing a really good job of keeping everybody's spirits up. I know that the AFL-CIO is providing a lot of direction for the local union leaders and how to navigate through all of this with the members. But for us, I think we're really just focusing on making sure that they have the resources that they need and that are available at this time. And one big thing that we were fortunate enough to be able to do for our members were we were able to send out a $500 stimulus check from one of the funds that the members pay into on a regular basis to every member in good standing. And that was really helpful. And we've been getting excellent feedback about that.
As you know, and again, I don't know this specific business, but a lot of companies probably aren't going to survive through this crisis. So as a union, or for your union members who are working for companies that may not survive, I mean, how do you see this impacting the future of your union or unions in general?
I have trouble speaking on that because I don't think that I've been around long enough to really see how maybe other catastrophes have affected us and stuff. But I know that there's definitely concern about some of the power plants that have been shut down due to the pandemic reopening. And I know there's a lot of talk about the environment and stuff like that and how everything, and that's kind of good for the environment, but doesn't always work in our favor with the Boilermakers because we work in the coal-fired power plants. But I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in our members' minds about what's next. I think we're trying to focus on transitioning into some different type of technology in the future, like carbon capture and stuff like that, to try to keep the power plants running and keep them safer and hopefully ensure jobs for our members in the future.
So in terms of, you've been through this about a month and a half or so, has there been anything that you've rediscovered, whether it was hobbies, something you may have missed or didn't really have time to do before that you're doing now?
I would say probably my grad school program. I have been doing it part-time. This is my third year and I'm graduating this spring, and doing it part-time, I only take 2 classes a semester, and I have found that with all of this extra free time when I'm not working as much, I've really been able to dive more into this one class that I'm taking this semester. It's actually with Dr. F. But I've really enjoyed being able to focus a little bit more on school because school is kind of my part-time responsibility during normal life. So I kind of was able to put that ahead of everything else and focus a little bit more.
Awesome. And your graduation is upcoming this spring, so your
In May, yep.
congratulations. In May?
Thank you.
Awesome. So again, not quite sure what that'll look like, but the fact that you're kind of reaching that point in the process is certainly no doubt a testament to your work ethic. So looking back a little bit, I know we're not necessarily out of the woods yet, but if you've had the time to reflect a little bit on how things will be different when we do emerge, whether that's in work or life in general, what comes to mind when you think about that?
I think that things will start changing back to normal slower than people might expect. I think that it's not going to be like one day they're just going to open the doors and let everybody go like some people might be expecting. And I think I was a hospitality major in my undergrad, and I think for the hospitality industry, things are going to be dramatically different because I just think that bar stools are not six feet apart. I have a lot of friends that work in the industry, and I know they're really worried about when they reopen restaurants, will it even be the same? Will there be the same amount of volume? Are people going to have the money to spend? I think it's just going to be very, very different than what we've all experienced before in regards to those type of things.
Mm-hmm. So from your perspective, what is going to emerge and replace the handshake? Is it really going to be a fist bump, an elbow bump?
Coming from someone, I've never really been a big handshaker. I've always been really crazy about being clean and stuff. So I've never been a big handshaker. And I honestly don't know that there will be a physical touch thing again. I know a lot of different cultures and stuff like that, maybe like a wave or I don't know, something like that. I don't know that people are going to come up close, especially to people that they don't know.
That's true. It's true. It's one of the things, like I said, among many that obviously
maybe like a hand sign or something, a symbol.
Well, now's our chance to kind of start a new trend, perhaps, I suppose.
Yes, exactly. I've never thought about that until you said that.
So anything that you want to share with colleagues, friends, family, if you have the opportunity to do that, you'd like?
I just think that during this time, I found it really important to keep connected with everybody. I know that's kind of what everyone's saying around the whole entire world, but it's definitely been helpful to even just send somebody a little card or write them a message, send them a text, just let them know that you're thinking about them. I've definitely reconnected with some people in my past, even as far as like maybe teachers or somebody that I've just thought about during this whole thing. And it's really nice. Maybe go onto your Facebook, see somebody that you haven't talked to or reached out to. If you have anybody that you want to ask a question about for an opportunity in the future, like this is the time. People are bored, they're willing to talk, and I've definitely been trying to use this time to use some of my resources and get some information for my plans for the future.
Awesome. And that brings up, I think, the point that you made earlier too, that sometimes your members are calling just to talk and connect with somebody, and
yeah,
like I said, that's equally as important, I think. Among
it's funny, we deal with several retired members, so we keep saying normally they're the ones that are calling just to like talk and say, like we're like they're all like they're retired now. Everybody just wants to talk.
Sure. Which, like you said, during these types of environments, it's incredibly important to do. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, so Malena, for taking the time to speak with us today. We appreciate you sharing kind of your experience that you're seeing at work, as well as kind of things that are kind of changing in your life right now as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me on. I enjoyed it.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our guests for all their contributions to our podcast today. I found it very exciting and very rewarding, actually. Some of the thoughts I had were these are our future leaders, and I think they're handling this crisis or situation quite well, actually. Some of the things that stuck out to me was, and really changed my perspective, is how society is probably going to be much different when this is all said and done. We often think that it's going to go back to the norm, but in reality, I don't know if it can ever go back to the norm. And as many of our guests expressed, is this idea of, and we talked about the me society, how hopefully, and the idea that the world is going to be more connected and more and we're going to experience more collectivism instead of individualism. So again, that kind of excited me that we may get through this crisis and maybe a better society for it. although there were many tragedies and so forth. But again, I thought it was very refreshing, and I really enjoyed our time with our guests. I'm going to turn it over to Patrick now.
Yeah, and as you said, Dennis, their messages and their words were underpinned by hope. And I think the capacity for hope is one of the most significant elements of life. It provides human beings with a sense of destination, and perhaps most important, the energy to get started. All right, so as we reflect upon our conversations today, though they may still be tinged with a bit of uncertainty, each of our guests demonstrated that important ideal. And the capacity for hope has provided each of them, the energy to keep moving forward. And though their progress may be slower than what they prefer, right, they push forward, driven by hope, through the challenges that they are each facing within their respective journeys. Right? And that's what keeps us moving, not only for each of those individuals, but for the individuals within their families, their friends, and the circle of human connection that they have. So I want to take a moment and thank everybody for joining us here today. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We would also like to thank the Department of Employment and Labor Relations at Indiana University of Pennsylvania and the Rowland School of Business at Point Park University for their ongoing support of this podcast. We would also like to acknowledge the tremendous support provided by our man behind the scenes, Angelo Gargaro. His technical wizardry makes the recording process and the final productions of our show sound as amazing as they are and make us sound better as well. So if you have not had the chance to do so, make sure you check out his podcast, Spinning Thoughts, which is dedicated to supporting and lifting up the music community through in-depth band interviews, exclusive music premieres, and as well as album reviews. It's good stuff. Make sure you check them out. And we'd also like to thank our dedicated listeners around the world. Follow us on Instagram at Purposeful Leadership as we post additional content from beyond the studio related to leadership. So until next time.